The Locked On Podcast Network presents the College Sports Big 3 in 30. The three biggest stories in college sports. From our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 30 minutes. The College Sports Big 3 in 30 starts now with the biggest story in college sports.
Ohio State adds needed depth at quarterback with portal pickup. Ohio State goes out there and finds a guy to boost up the depth in the quarterback room. His name is Eli Brickhandler. You may not have heard about him, and that's okay. He's played quite a bit of ball at a couple of schools in college football, and he's coming in to add depth, the necessary depth this room needs. Because if you look at the room right now, you have a true freshman, you have a couple other guys that are really inexperienced that are trying to win the QB1 title. No one there has the necessary experience that you want for a quarterback at Ohio State, even if he's just a depth piece. Eli Brickhandler is coming in to do just that. And if I am Ryan Day, it's an interesting call to try to get a guy in the portal right now. But you're getting a guy in Brickhandler who doesn't just have 1 year of eligibility, he has 2. So he's not just someone that's coming in for a few months and then leaving Ohio State. No, he's going to be there for a couple years. He's going to help the room have a guy in there that's played a little bit of ball. Because when you look at that room right now, those guys have played just a handful of snaps. They ain't even played a little bit of ball. They played less than that. And for Brickhandler, he has to know coming in, his role is not to try to be the starting quarterback. His role is to try to be that veteran presence, be that older voice, be a leader, be a culture builder inside the quarterback room. Don't come in and try to ruffle some feathers. Don't come in and think you're going to get in that quarterback battle. This ain't that, especially for this year. Maybe you get a whole lot better in Brickhandler and he goes and does some big things in the offseason. He competes in 2026, which is highly unlikely. So just come in there, be a guy. Be a locker room guy. Be one of the boys, man. That's all we need. One more person to add to the brotherhood. That's all the Buckeyes need. But I'm happy Ryan Day's making this move. And I know people might wonder, like, what does this mean for Keene Holmes and Saying? Does this mess up their path and maybe push them outside of Columbus, Ohio? Absolutely not. Oh, might I add, the portal isn't open. Him coming in right now does not – those other guys don't have an opportunity to go to the portal because the portal isn't opening up again until December. And even then, with the meetings that are going on right now in the offseason between the people in the sport that make all of the decisions, their portal might not be opening in December like it normally does. They may move that date and say, no, we're going to move it until after the end of the season, which I think would be very, very smart. Or we're going to change the date. Whatever the case may be, it wouldn't shock me if that happened. But also, these guys can't leave. But Ryan Day understands. Like, you look at Brickhandler's numbers. He did some good stuff last year at Houston Christian. He spent a couple years at North Carolina A&T when he started his collegiate career. Last year, he split time with Cutter Stewart with the Huskies. He went 38 for 77, passing for 557 yards and 4 touchdowns with 2 INTs last year at Houston Christian. He did some good stuff on the ground, though. He had 63 carries. This is Brickhandler we're talking about. 63 carries, 264 rushing yards, including 4 touchdowns, averaging 4.2 yards a pop. That's not bad. He did have a game where he had 138 yards on the ground. That's not bad. That's not bad for just a guy that's playing a little bit of ball at a lower level. I'm not going to knock him for that. You're a quarterback. You don't have all the talent. You don't have all the experience. You don't have all the tools. You're doing what you can with what you got. I'm not mad about it. I'm also not mad about Ryan Day making this move. I know at the time that he's making it, it may be controversial to some. I don't understand why. When you look at the context, this is not going to mess up the path of Saying or Keene Holmes being able to win the quarterback battle to get on the field. This doesn't even mess up Tavian St. Clair's path to get on the field and really just wait his turn. Brickhandler's not coming in to jump St. Clair. He's a 4th quarterback. He is on scholarship. Ryan Day is pushing the right buttons, making some calls. It might be interesting by some people, but at the end of the day, I think we're going to look back to this moment and say, Ryan Day got it right. I mean, Patricia. I like the Patricia hire. We truly won't know if that was the right hire until we get into the season and we look back and say, oh, well, they performed very well. And that hire was the correct one. For this one, I think right now we'll look back in 6 months. If we look back, flash forward to December and look back to this point in time, I think all of us will look at this moment and say, Ryan Day got it right. Ryan Day pushed the right buttons. Ryan Day got a guy that can be a leader in the room, that can be that veteran presence, that can play in true mop-up duty if need be. And there is a guy that has some experience. That's all he's looking for. Experience, a veteran presence, a leader, an older figure. You get that in Eli Brickhandler. Ryan Day, great pickup. Someone who's a little bit under the radar, someone who's played a little bit of ball, can be a dual threat, do some things with his arm and do some things with his legs that can fit the mold of the quarterback that you want. That can be that veteran presence, has a little bit of experience that can help the young guys as they get some more experience on the field. Great job, Ryan Day. And I'm also wondering, well, Ryan Day's done a great job with the portal this offseason. Is Ryan Day done shopping in the portal? And also, if he isn't, what positions should he target? Part of me wonders if Ryan Day is still looking for more depth at D tackle. Right now, that'd be the only position I would even pursue. Because if you're trying to get an old lineman, he's probably going to be in a similar situation as Brickhandler, that you're trying to get a guy to come in, be an older voice, be a veteran leader. But a lot of times he may have traits of a guy that can play right now, and he may not want to just ride the pine, sit on the bench all season and watch other guys play. And I wouldn't blame him if that was his mindset. So O-line, maybe. Running back, receiver, tight end, no. On defense, edge, no. You got plenty of edge players. Even if you think about Hicks and potentially Arvell Reese playing on the edge too, you got plenty of guys on the edge. Linebacker, no. Secondary, no. It's truly just in the trenches. It's highly unlikely the Buckeyes go out there and try to get an offensive lineman. But I think with D tackle, that'd be the only position I would pursue. And while I don't truly know if Ryan Day is done doing business in the portal, because this Brickhandler acquisition came and it was very quiet around the Buckeyes' activity in the portal, I think Ryan Day could fly under the radar once again and add a D tackle for depth purposes only, and not a guy that's trying to come in and play right away. Because I think still, if you look at the Buckeyes' defensive tackle rotation, after you get to McDonald and Houston, you got Jason Moore, Will Smith Jr., Tywone Malone. I think those guys are good depth pieces. They just don't have the experience. If you can bring a guy in that has a little bit of experience to be a depth piece there, that has multiple years of eligibility remaining, that's what you're looking for. But for Ryan Day, you have to figure out, is it the right time to do that? Because you're about to get into official visit season, and do you want to deal with the portal and recruiting camps and official visits all at the same time? Maybe Ryan Day does. Maybe he doesn't. I'll venture on that he doesn't. But if it's a guy that can help Ohio State now and help them be a better defense in the fall, you got to move forward with it. You absolutely have to. So, no, I don't truly think Ryan Day has done shopping in the portal. I do think that there would be only one position he should target, and that be D tackle. I was a person that was at one time thinking, hey, at running back, get another veteran running back. I don't think that's even needed based off the high praise that coaches have thrown towards Bo Jackson. I think you could just ride with Bo Jackson as RB3 and make that thing ride. Yeah, I'm a little nervous about the other running backs besides Donaldson's ability to protect the quarterback. I think that's one that, no matter if it's Peoples or Jackson or anybody else, any normal analyst would say, if you haven't played a lot of ball, you probably aren't a good pass protecting running back. I'm not here to knock the abilities of these guys. It's just the reality that it's hard to do. I mean, look at Travion Henderson. His best year in pass pro was year 4. And it wasn't because Quinshon Judkins was his running mate. It was because it took him that long to figure the thing out. It's just football, baby. That's just the way the cookie crumbles. And so moving forward, if the Buckeyes are done to the portal, okay, I think you can ride with the guys that you got on the roster and be successful in the fall. But if Ryan Day says there's a guy out there that can help us win now and add the necessary depth we need at this position, go ahead and get that guy. That's how I view it. I like Ryan Day's approach to the portal. I like that a lot of the guys he's picked up have multiple years of eligibility left. So you're not getting a guy that's a 1 year rental like a Will Howard. You knew that. You capitalized. You won the Natty. Great. But you want guys that you can have around for multiple years, like an Eli Brickhandler, and like a lot of the guys, Bo Atkinson and others, that Ryan Day and Ohio State have picked up in the portal in 2025.
The NBA playoffs roll on, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and you place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. FanDuel makes betting easy, whether it's picking your favorites or diving into player props from three-pointers to steals to assists. There's so many ways to bet your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. You could use that $5 bet on the Knicks, who are minus 144 to win the Eastern Final. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today.
Darrion Williams is officially coming back to school, and Bill Self in Kansas trying to close the deal.
You are Locked On Jayhawks, your daily podcast on the Kansas Jayhawks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Darrion Williams, guy that I've dubbed as the number one portal target for KU for a long time. Well, he's officially back in school. He was at the NBA Draft Combine. He's coming back to college, visiting KU. We're going to get into all that and more. Plus, there's some interesting quotes and comments from Bill Self that he gave to CJ Moore of The Athletic, specifically talking about Marco Jackson, that he was almost a starter. What does that mean for this year's team? And we'll get to some of the latest news, including on Dan Fitzgerald and elsewhere with possible more international targets, and on and on and on the offseason goes with KU. Let's start with some Darrion Williams talk, though, as Darrion Williams officially this morning, I guess if you're listening to this on Wednesday, then it would be yesterday morning. But Tuesday morning, Darrion Williams officially exited the NBA draft process, that according to John Rothstein and Jeff Goodman. And it was something where he didn't have the best combine necessarily. Like in some of the scrimmages, the stats weren't there. He struggled a little bit here. Didn't measure out super great. I don't know that he was ever somebody who was expected to measure super great to begin with. But even then, like, you know, you're hoping if you're him, you don't want to measure 6'4.5" without shoes when you're mostly a 4-man. But obviously we know he's a very productive college player, and none of that stuff bothers me in terms of, should KU not want him anymore because he measured 6'4.5" without, no, KU should still want this dude. He's a stud at the collegiate level at the very least. So comes back from the NBA draft officially. Then Eric Bossy of 24/7 Sports reports that he is in Lawrence on a visit, and it's very interesting, the timing of all of this, but it feels like things are getting real now, because it feels like for a long time we were in a waiting period. We were in a just kind of, okay, well, let's wait and see what happens with the combine, and let's get closer to the NBA draft deadline in terms of, are you going to stay in? Are you going to withdraw away from the draft? And now it feels like, okay, finally we're getting some action. We're going to get some movement on whatever is going to happen one way or another, whether he's going to pick KU or whether he's not, and where KU goes from here. But this is also a pivotal moment in the offseason, because can Bill Self close the door, as we've seen him do time and time again? You've heard the term spring Bill, that he always comes through seemingly with that one big piece he needs to in the spring. And so with Williams, NC State, who clearly has a resurgence, with Will Wade, who obviously can make strong offers himself. Ohio State is somebody of interest, like going back to Tech, I guess, is a possibility. I don't know. It seems like it's mostly Kansas and NC State that you hear from, but maybe those are on the forefront as well. Can Bill Self close the door and get this done for Darrion Williams? Now, he did mention in an interview that was given during the draft, like the big thing for him was going to be about development and what school can kind of raise his stock in the NBA draft. Like, those are going to be key things. Like, he has been a winning basketball player. He has been a productive basketball player at the collegiate level. He is a little less concerned with what role is he going to have on a team, and he shouldn't be that concerned, because not that he shouldn't be concerned with the role, but I think he's viewing it from a standpoint, and this is how I would view it if I were him. He's a good enough player that no matter where he goes, he's going to have a role on the team, and a big role on the team. So it's more about who can send you to the next level. Well, if you are Kansas, The thing you have to offer him is the idea of, okay, you're going to play next to a rim protector, which is going to help you on defense. And on the offensive end of the floor, you're going to get to play next to Darrion Peterson, which is both going to open you up for more opportunities with the attention drawn on him, but it's also going to put a lot of NBA scout eyeballs on all the Kansas games this season, which is probably a good thing for you, assuming you're going to have a good season, which, if you're Darrion Williams, you would assume you're going to have a good season because you're a good basketball player, right? So those are reasons you would pick KU. The reason to pick NC State would maybe be more so like he could be the guy, he could be the dude, and put up monstrous numbers. I would think, though, like, if you're Darrion Williams, right now he's projected, if he would have stayed in this draft, as like an early to mid second round pick. And I guess that was before the stuff that happened. So I don't know, where he would slot at this point in time. But based on, where he's projected to be, if you're going to be a second round draft pick, you're not somebody that an NBA franchise is bringing in with the idea that you're going to be a franchise altering player, that you're going to be the dude. They're bringing you in under the idea of, okay, we think you can be a good role player for this team. We hope that maybe you can develop into one of our starters, or that you can be a key bench player, whatever it ends up being. And so wouldn't you almost want to replicate the best opportunity? Like, if you're saying, hey, I go to Kansas, I get to play off of Darrion Peterson. This is going to get frustrating. Darrion and Darren. Anyway, if you get to play off of Darrion Peterson and succeed in that role, then NBA teams are like, oh, hey, we have this stud, on the ball player. We have a Trae Young. We have a Jason Tatum. We have whoever it is, and we know you can play off of them like you did with Darrion Peterson, who's going to go top 3 in the draft, right? That can be very beneficial to him. Now, all that said, you got to get the right money offer too. Like that, I don't think is something he said, but that probably is the quiet thing behind all of these recruits. Like, you can't be beat on the money offer here. If you can get to the same number as these other schools that are in the running, do you lean back on all the other things that you have to offer that can be enough? But you got to be there with that strong offer to kind of match what anybody else is doing. And the last thing you want here is kind of extending out the recruiting battle. I will say something that gives me like a lot of hope here is kind of the coincidence, so to speak, of the timing of all of this. Think about this. It gets announced on Tuesday morning that he is withdrawing from the NBA draft. And then we find out later in the day he is visiting Kansas. Are we naive enough to think that, not that somebody's trying to pull one over on us for this, but like, are we naive enough to think that, oh, he announced he's going to be withdrawing from the draft in the morning, and immediately after Bill Self called him up and said, hey, I'm going to send you a private plane and you're going to come visit Kansas. And he's like, okay, let's do that. No. If he was visiting Kansas, this had to be planned out in advance. Now, how long in advance? Could it have been a day? Could it have been 2 days? That can be up in the air. But there's no way it was all happened in one day where he made that decision and Kansas was like, oh, crap, let's get you on this last-minute flight right now. This had to be planned a little bit more in advance. And that makes me think that maybe things are a little bit further along than you might actually think, because clearly there's been some sort of communication there that was behind closed doors. Because again, that wouldn't add up that it would all just have to happen in one day. It seems like there was a little bit more of a plan here than you would kind of indicate. The other beauty of this is the recruiting dead period is coming up here. And so what that means is that with Darrion Williams, he's not going to get a chance to visit these other schools unless he waits till the beginning of June when the recruiting dead period comes to a close, which can go either way. If this recruitment lasts longer and he doesn't commit in the next, whatever week, 2 weeks, then that's going to make you worried that, okay, he's waiting to visit other schools. But if he's making a decision soon, that gives you hope that you would be the one in the end. And so going back to just how pivotal this is, with Sarr kind of feeling like that's a do clean at this point, like this feels like the best chance to maximize what this team can be. Like there's still some other options that are out there, especially internationally, I guess like Jameer Watkins and stuff. There are some options out there. But the 100th percentile outcome, the best outcome that is still available for KU that is left in this offseason, to me, involves landing Darrion Williams. It kind of starts and ends with that. And so it does become a little bit of panic mode if Darrion Williams picks another school. That'll be super interesting how that impacts negotiations, because they probably know too that, like, yeah, you really need him too. So what are you willing to offer, right? But overall, I love me some Darrion Williams, and I wouldn't let a I guess, a lower performance for him at the NBA draft combine like sour you at all on what he is. It was just a few days of bad basketball. He's more of a team playing guy. Like, you go back and look at Nevada's 13-18. He shows up as a freshman. They go 22-11. Texas Tech goes 16-16. He shows up as a transfer. They go 23-11. His net ratings the last 3 years, on-off net rating, Tech was almost 15 points better this year. They were 13 points better the year before, and Nevada was almost 25 points better per 100 possessions when he was on the floor. He is a winning player, and so some of those scrimmage settings can be more about like the guys who are just athletes and going to get out in an open gym and run and get, easy cherry-picked buckets and stuff like that. What we know is Darrion Williams is a heck of a college basketball player. He was a first-team All-Big 12 player. Everywhere he's gone, they have been better, and I think that would be the case with Kansas as well.
Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. Track all of your accounts, investments, and spending in one place so you stop just managing your money and you start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year.
You are Locked On Kentucky, your daily podcast on the Kentucky Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Braden Hawthorne ends up choosing the Cats over West Virginia. Big-time prospect here, a high riser over these last several months, has taken some visits to some big-time schools after decommitting from the Mountaineers, and of course, he chooses Kentucky in the end. Thank you guys so much for tuning in here on today's episode of the show. If you're watching the show live on YouTube, would really appreciate it if you dropped a like. Let me know what you think about this commitment in the comments below. We'll get to you here as we are again live on YouTube. If you're listening on postcast on podcast, would love it if you subscribe there as well. All right, let's go ahead and get into it. So we talked about Braden Hawthorne on yesterday's show. Spent like the first half of the show talking about Braden Hawthorne, what we knew about him, the latest developments on his recruitment. We've already discussed him on the show, but it felt like coming into yesterday, it was more of a formality because maybe some other schools had some more traction. Maybe some other schools were going to, or had positioned themselves, I should say, to get a commitment from him over somebody like Kentucky, West Virginia, Duke, Virginia Tech, and Pitt apparently were in here as well. It felt like Kentucky had kind of stumbled out of the race weeks back, and then we hear leading up to his commitment here today over the last several days, like, hey, actually, Kentucky's not out of this, they're not out of this, they're not out of this. You're going to see the Wildcats be a major factor here as it comes down to the wire, and then you start to see even Hawthorne himself tweeting out, look, I've not even told anybody where I'm going to commit. I've not even told my parents. And here we are now, and all of a sudden, this kid's a Wildcat. Yesterday, I was incredibly skeptical on my show as to whether or not he was actually going to even commit to Kentucky despite the news, and I think a lot of people shared the same sentiment. At least a lot of the people that I've been talking to is like, yeah, I don't really know if I buy into the fact that Kentucky's actually going to get this kid in the end. Maybe he goes back to West Virginia. Maybe he goes somewhere else. According to people like Trilly Donovan, Kentucky didn't even have the highest NIL offer on the table. We didn't even have the most money to give this kid. So, with all that being said, we don't really know what exactly happened over the course of the last several weeks. But what we do know is that Braden Hawthorne, a 6'8", 175-pound small forward, top 35 overall prospect according to the 24/7 Sports Raw player ratings, is officially a Kentucky Wildcat. And the thing that you like about him the most, I think, is his long-term development. This is a kid that's going to have to stay on roster at least at least 2 seasons before I think we see what he's fully capable of, and what he could develop into is a very interesting conversation to have. So we've seen the different various, I think that you're going to find Kentucky trying to put weight on this kid and then trying to mold him into that type player. Also, OBS just said it disconnected, so hopefully the live stream is still going. If it's not, you guys let me know in the comments. But yeah, Hawthorne, I think, is going to, that's his ceiling, is a Brandon Ingram type rangy, lanky, spot-up shooter that can get you buckets at the 3. It's also interesting because if you want to read into like how this kid developed, like first of all, again, he's a high riser. This kid was a nobody just a few months ago in terms of what recruiting rankings were thinking of him. Had very little offers, and the ones that he did were mid-majors, decent ones at best, and he started to rise. He went from a 3-star to a 4-star. He was initially a guard. He initially played guard, and this was a kid that just grew, and like all of a sudden just shot up, and is now 6'8", 6'9", according to some sources. The kid's tall, and he's kind of moved down to that wing spot. So there's a lot that could be happening here with Hawthorne in terms of what he molds himself into. I don't know if you're necessarily thinking like Tyrese Halliburton in terms of shooting and playmaking and kind of being just a taller, rangier type dude. If he can handle the ball as well as Tyrese can, then maybe you can have that conversation. But I really do like this commitment for Kentucky, especially if, again, go back to what I said a minute ago, if he is a long-term development plan. If you can get him into this system, get him here at least 2 years, and then you look ahead, and maybe in year 2 or in year 3 and say, okay, this is a legitimate NBA caliber player because of what he's been able to do in the offseason and then also during his sparing the minutes that he gets sparingly on the court. So I'm excited about this pickup. I think this kid has a lot of potential. He's got a very, very, very high ceiling. It's just right now, there are some steps that he needs to take to kind of at least try and touch that ceiling or break through it, I guess, so to speak. So I think this is good. It also adds on to Kentucky's freshman recruiting class, which had gotten a little thin after Caden Lewis decommitted. You now have four different 4-stars here in Jasper Johnson, Malachi Marino, and Braden Hawthorne, at least according to 24/7 Sports. Jasper is a 5-star according to other services, and Marino is a 5-star, at least according to one. I think the number 1 overall center, at least according to one recruiting source out there. So this is a good pickup. It boosts your numbers, and then long term, I think you're going to be able to get a lot out of a kid like Hawthorne. As we were talking about the commitment of 4-star prospect Braden Hawthorne, I do want to note he is the 33rd overall player according to 24/7 Sports, but according to the composite ratings, he is the 101st overall player. It's just because of how highly, or I guess 24/7 has thought of Hawthorne as he's risen in the rankings here over these last several months. So that's something to note. Let's see. Great Kentuckian says, I think he's just responding to somebody else here in the chat. Always stock only rises if he can make threes, especially if he's open for an opportunity. If he wants to be a lottery pick next draft, he has to make those shots. And I think Comp AW said, so how's Always NBA stock going to rise if he comes back to Kentucky? I don't think it's going to, let me say this. I don't know if it's necessarily going to rise significantly, and a lot of it has to do with what Great Kentuckian is saying there. Can he make threes? And I'm not necessarily even asking him to make, I'm not asking him to just make threes. I'm asking him to be able to create shots from beyond the arc, off of the dribble, instead of being in catch and shoot and spot up situations. I need him to be able to create a little bit for himself and to get that 3-point shot up quicker. There is no denying it. OA has a very funky release, and it's a load up, and it takes a while to get the shot off. He needs to be able to go through that fluidly, but also quicker. He needs to speed his game up from beyond the perimeter in order to be a valuable asset in the NBA, whether that be as somebody coming off the bench or somebody that actually meaningfully contributes to a team as a starter or whatever it may be in the future. If he's going to be a late first-round pick next year, if he comes back this year, I'm saying, he has to be able to Kentucky to find ways to just to speed up his game, I think, from beyond the perimeter. Inside, he's perfectly fine. I think that he can be a bruiser, somebody that gets to the rim, finishes pretty well. He's got to be able to get that floater game going a little bit more consistently, I will say that, which you saw it at various points towards the end of last season where he was just able to take over, specifically twice against the Sooners. But I think it does have to do with, can he develop that aspect of his offense? And if he can, you're going to see his NBA stock rise. That's how he would have to do it at UK. And frankly, I think he'll have the chance to do that at Kentucky As we've previously stated on the show, I think his environment is going to be significantly better. I think that the players surrounding him are just going to make him look better in terms of the fact that we've got kids that can be more effective, driving to the rim, being more physical, maybe giving Kentucky some inside-out game instead of some outside-in game with your 5-man being beyond the perimeter. I think Kentucky can be more versatile offensively is what I'm trying to say here. And OA, I think, is going to be a beneficiary of that. Mark Kinson says, we're going to have a really tall team, 2 7-footers, 6'11", 6'10", 6'9", 6'8", and 6'7", and then all of the guards, which also, you want to point out, Jalen Lowe is like 6'3", Cullen Chandler 6'5", OA 6'5". This is a very tall team, and I was thinking about this before I went live, about just how tall Kentucky can be this season, but it's not just tall, it's also physical. Cam Williams, Mo Diabate, Jaden Quaintance. Look, these guys are ranging between 6'8 to 6'9 to 6'10, and all of them are extremely physical players, or at least have the ability to display that here at Kentucky. So I'm excited. It's not just height, it's actual physicality to go along with that length. And if you are able to apply yourself on the defensive end, Kentucky can be so much better than they were a season ago, even if the offense struggles from 3 just a little bit. And who knows? Maybe it struggles significantly. Maybe Kentucky on average shoots 34.5% or 33% from 3 next season, and they could still be a significantly improved team if their defense actually does take the leap that we expect it to. So height is really important, but also at the same time, I think that the muscle is also really awesome as well. Let's see here. Great Kentuckian says Timberwolves are getting game 1. You know what? I don't have anything against the Thunder, so I'm kind of an unbiased participant here tonight. I'll take the Thunder. I'll take the Thunder tonight. I think the more I watch the Knicks, the more I do enjoy just how they are able to operate. I think they're a very fun team. Let's see. Michael Green Chili Chicken says, let's go. Welcome to Big Blue Nation, Mr. Hawthorne. And the thing about Hawthorne, man, is that you were able, I think Matt Jones tweeted about this, and I was going to say something similar on the live. So you were able to get a top 35 overall player to commit to being, Jones said, you're to the 14th spot on your roster. I think because of his talent and because of the what if factor of what does he do this offseason, I think I would probably have him a little higher in this rotation if I'm guessing. You got to be able to get the kid some minutes. I mean, it's a top 35 prospect that can shoot. There's so much potential here. You're thinking BI, you're thinking Tyrese. You could find yourself with not a hidden gem, but a legitimate gem.